We didn't come this far to slow down now. Let 2021 be the year that you light up, that you wake up, that you shake up that special something in your soul, that you reach out and work for that health, that life, that vibrant living you know is possible. Let this be the year. Let this be the day. Let this be the moment that you believe in miracles again. Everybody, it is Dr. Devin, and I have been so excited. I feel like this conversation that you are about to tune in for has been years in the making, and there's 1,000 things that had to happen to drop us into this moment, and I am honored, truly, truly honored to have a friend, a goddess warrior, an inspiration, a servant in every sense of the word with us today. Please welcome Dr. Jessica Bohlke.
Hi, everyone. Wow, that was a lovely introduction. You're going to make me cry.
Well,
Speaking of just the journey that has gotten us here, it is really so beautiful. So thank you for having me. It's truly an honor.
Yeah, it's funny how life has a way of weaving us all together, right? Always a higher purpose in action. And I'm going to just jump right in, but first want you to kind of do what we do at the intro. And for the people out there who may not know who you are, tell us who you are, where you're at in the world, and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Dr. Jessica Bohlke. I'm in Overland Park, Kansas. So I am a chiropractor serving people of all ages from newborn to elderly. I call myself a professional patient as I've been on my own health journey, which is why my practice is called Journey Chiropractic, really just meeting individuals where they're at and helping them take their next step toward where they want to be in the life that they desire to have.
And it's always funny to ask and hear answers of that question. I mean, like, they're such generic but big questions. Who are you? What do you do? And I'm over here just like chomping at the bit because I know so many things that are going to serve people in big ways today. But it's you and I have shared conversations about this premise, right? Like, if more people just knew, right? If they knew these things, how health and happiness in the world really would look different. So I'm gonna go with that question. What if you could wave your magic wand and the world would wake up tomorrow and know this big idea or this thing that life has maybe stitched into you? What's that one big thing you wish more people knew?
I wish more people knew that the power inside of them is so much greater than is ever going to be explainable. So really tapping into their innate intelligence, their inner wisdom, because I think we're born with it. And as we grow, we learn to silence it and we learn to swallow it and we learn to think more logically. So whether you're walking through a health journey, becoming a parent, whatever it may be, I just wish people knew that they know things, that they know themselves, and that something inside them is greater than any doctor or anyone is going to be able to ever explain. And that's the beautiful thing. So science is never going to be able to tap into that because they're not supposed to. And the more we lean into that and the more we find it as our power, the better off all of us are going to be in our relationships, our health, our vitality, our confidence. Depression is on the rise, all these different things. So that's what I wish people knew.
Now, how old are you?
26.
Oh, you're a baby, and you're so beautiful and young and vibrant. And when people look at you, it seems really easy to say, I'm a chiropractor and our power's in here and you just need to listen to what I say, right? Like like social media lies, right? They see this version of you, but they don't see the road that got you here. Right. So how have you learned this, and how has this truth been cultivated in your own life?
Yes, I would definitely say, in short, I've learned it the hard way. The first 20 years of my life were spent very much so silencing that inner knowing, and just doing what I was told, especially when it came to my health. I grew up with the best family, but our way of doing things was, you have a sniffle, you go to the doctor. You have a sore throat, you go to the doctor. You get an A on your spelling test, you go to the doctor. I mean, doctor knows best. Take it fully as prescribed. Don't ask questions. And so that was the whole model in which I listened to my body was something's wrong. I'm going to the doctor so they can tell me what's wrong with me. And I followed the allopathic model of healthcare for a very long time. It was either, an antibiotic or an antifungal or whatever it may be. I was always taking medication of some sort. And when I reached puberty, I started to realize something was wrong. And it was something that was always, that's normal in girls your age. That's normal in girls your age. That's normal in girls your age. And so my message was, if this is normal, I must be weak because I can't handle it. And so I tried to swallow my symptoms and just carry on with my days or whatever it may be, take the ibuprofen just to show up to a sleepover or push through the day. It eventually led to my college years. It all started with one UTI, which was something that my roommate's like, oh yeah, I get them all the time. Here's some azo, you'll be just fine. So again, that trend of this is normal, this is normal, this is normal. Mm-hmm. But something inside me really started to question what was actually going on. And at that point, I started to realize something's wrong. It was just that everywhere I would turn for answers, they told me it was normal. So incredibly long story short, I ended up getting 13 diagnosed UTIs in 9 months in college. And so you can only imagine the amount of antibiotics I was on.
Goodness gracious. You say that now, and I'm sure hearing it backwards is like painful in a whole, like, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to be a normal college kid. So if that meant taking an antibiotic for 14 days, that made me
get me back in my life.
Worse. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Just get me back. And one thing led to another. I eventually went to a specialist who did a CT scan. And halfway through the CT scan, my throat closed due to an allergic reaction of the contrast dye. So they said, good news, we found what's going on. You have kidney stones and you have a urinary deflux. So my urine is backflowing up to my kidneys. And I said, okay, great, let's fix it. They're like, it's going to take 2 surgeries, yada, yada, yada. Those 2 surgeries go by and I'm still not feeling right. So at this point, my menstrual cycles are so brutal that I'm on muscle relaxers, high dose painkillers, and an antibiotic during my menstrual cycle just to get through that. So at this point, I was 18.
Yeah.
18, 19. I was 19. And so at this point, I go see the gynecologist. The gynecologist says, wait a minute, I need that CT scan. So we get the CT scan sent over. It turns out they actually found ovarian cysts on the CT scan. They just were not legally required to say anything because their expertise was urology and this was a gynecology situation. So they said, you have these things, they're very normal in girls your age. Again, the word normal. You have dermoid ovarian cysts that are the size of baked potatoes, and they're actually inside your ovaries, and they're growing large enough to the point where they can twist and rupture and cut off blood supply. So we need to monitor them and eventually get them removed. And I thought, I had been through all these surgeries. I had been on all these medications. I was feeling so defeated. And I thought, if they're the size of baked potatoes inside my ovaries, could that be why my bladder was being pressed on and urine was backflowing up into my kidneys? But nobody took a step back.
Right, to see the whole.
Yes.
We get so hyper-focused at it's madness.
Yes. Yeah. So I had those 2 surgeries hindsight's always 20/20, but I really started to kind of put these pieces together that, okay, it wasn't just a urology issue. It wasn't just a gynecology issue. It was a whole person thing. And the gynecologist said, yeah, that could very well be. These are very large. So at that point, we did some follow-ups and they kept growing larger and larger. So surgery was a must. And I started to question because my fertility was on the line. And my now husband and I had just started dating, and, you know, I'm a young college girl. And so I started thinking about my future in that way. And that was the first time I really started researching what was going on.
Yeah.
So I started researching my surgical options for the best outcomes for fertility. And instead of going in with a robot, which would be less invasive, less recovery, less bleeding, all of that good stuff, I asked my surgeon to do a cesarean-like cut to actually take the ovaries out of the body, operate on them, and put them back in. And this would increase the chances of saving ovarian tissue. She would have much more detail instead of going in with a robot. And it didn't really make sense to anyone, but something in my gut I listened to for the first time. And they agreed to it. And it was a much more expensive recovery, more bleeding, all the things, longer hospital stay. And she goes, and you're going to have a scar when you wear a bikini. I'm like, lady, are you serious right now?
The
Anyway,
things that we figure into our, yeah.
I know. I'm like, we're talking about my ability to have children someday. So anyway, I end up doing the surgery that way. And, you know, we really thought that was the last thing, like the last piece of my journey, because it's like, okay, we finally found the root cause. It was these large cysts that were pressing on the bladder, causing infections, yada, yada, yada. Woke up from surgery. They said, great news. We saved both ovaries. Everything, looks amazing. It's just healing. You're going to be feeling like a brand new woman, blah, 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 blah. And after surgery, I started turning gray. I had such a horrible yeast infection that thrush. My mouth was lime green all the way down into my small and large intestine. I had that much fungus from all of the antibiotics my body had been through. And so it was just a really rough surgical recovery. But I thought, you know what? We did it. This is the last leg. I just have to heal. I just have to get through this. And 7 days post-op, I got the phone call from my surgeon. And I'll never forget all the details of that day. December 19th, just a few days before Christmas, I'm on college break, at home recovering, and she calls me, and I had no, studies at this point, so I didn't even know what the word malignancy meant. When she told me we found a malignancy. And I just kept saying, what does that mean? What does that mean? I literally, honest to all things, thought she was talking about my fertility. Like, because the tone of her voice was sad and she was very somber, and she even started to cry on the phone. We had a pretty good relationship. And she said, Jess, I have no idea how we missed this. I have sent this off to pathology 3 different times to confirm you have a severe grade 3 malignancy, blah, blah, blah. And I literally kept asking her, what does that mean? Because I truly didn't know. And she said, Jess, you have cancer. It's very aggressive. You need to get back to the hospital. The hospital is 5 hours away from my hometown. I'm gray. I'm urinating blood. My mouth is green. I felt like I could not physically take one more thing or I was going to die. And I remember just like convulsively shaking. I was by myself and I looked down at the screen and tears were just pouring onto my phone. And I just couldn't hit the red button fast enough. But my phone was stopping wet. My touchscreen didn't work. And I just started screaming, stop talking, because she kept saying more details and all the things. And then she said, okay, before you hang up, I need to tell you one more thing. And I listened and I was bawling. And she said, I need you to know that the way you chose to do the surgery saved your life. Because if we would have went in with the robot, still gets me every time, we would not have gotten clear margins and you would have grade 3, highly, highly aggressive cancer cells throughout your entire abdomen, and it wouldn't be good. And that was the greatest gift she could have ever given me, was her humility and the humble spirit she had to share that with me. Because the only decision I've ever made for my health up to that point saved my life. And that's where my journey really truly began, was with that statement. Because, you know, leading up to that point, like I had talked about, I knew something was wrong. I knew it. I just couldn't connect with it. I couldn't understand it. And when she shared that piece with me, it really came full circle that there is something inside of me that knew. And as devastating as the diagnosis was, and as crippling as it was, and as much as I felt like I was on the outside looking in, that moment validated something I needed to know. And something that I wish everybody knew without having to go through that experience. But it really was the most beautiful gift. I know that was a long-winded answer, but I feel like it's important.
You know, and it's like, you think, you know, people, right? Like, I mean, I know you, but there's so many elements in that share that I had never heard. And knowing the you that I do know, imagining those moments. And as a 19, 20-year-old girl, and now to see you in practice and the motivation that must have, right? Because a lot of people think chiropractic and they associate it, neck pain, back pain.
Yeah.
Chiropractic, right? That's not the chiropractic you and I practice.
No.
Although we can help with things like that, but it's that inner knowing, it's that inner voice that chiropractic has called you to serve with, that is motivated by a life experience that has changed you at your core, and will
absolutely
will impact the lives. Now, we're probably going to have to do a segment 2 of this, because I also, you didn't take the traditional routes, you know, that everybody wonders. And we all know somebody with cancer. I mean, statistically, like, you know, we all know somebody or have been through that or are going through that right now. And so there's so much power. So I'm going to dot that. And guys, you're going to have to tune in for 2 segments with this amazing human. But walk us through, let's pause at that one thing of this knowing, this power in you, to people that are new to this concept, right? How do you get to know that voice? How do you get to trust that voice?
Wow. That's a powerful question. Honestly, for me, my faith has been a huge part of finding that voice and understanding where I come from and what I'm made of, and why I'm never going to be able to fit into a checklist or a box. And starting to tap into that for me was honestly getting quiet and listening. And that sounds so cliche, but for me, and I think everyone's listening looks different, but it's such a journey, and you're not going to get there overnight, but you have to take baby steps in finding that. And another thing for me was, you know, in my journey and choosing my healing and all of that, I really had to realize where everyone's coming from. So especially in a cancer diagnosis, everyone around you is surrounded by fear, but I knew that I couldn't operate out of fear. You can thank people for their opinions and kindly respect that that's where they're at, but you have to bring yourself to another place or you're not going to survive. And that was the thing, is I could lovingly come alongside my family and my friends who had no idea why I was choosing what I was about to choose, but also saying, I respect you and I hear you, but I have to listen to what's within me or I'm going to have regrets. And so really music was a big one for me, like listening to worship music really helped me tune in. And I think it's different for everybody, but also just writing was a huge piece. I started a blog and I didn't care what anyone thought of it at the time, because I was like, this is what's happening. This is how I feel. And it was my outlet. And so I think it's really important to find different things that help you tap in, even when it's hard, to remind yourself of who you are. But really realizing that we're all human. And so a lot of people in our lives are going to have opinions and degrees and different understandings, but there's nothing more powerful than listening to what's within you. Even if you love people or they're the best of the best doctors in the Midwest. I mean, I had people at Mayo Clinics literally tell me, you're going to die in 5 years without this. And I had to say, thank you, but no thanks, and so really tapping into what's true in here.
And that led you to follow the path that you did. And I want that full story. I mean, we're going to have to dig in for that one.
Yeah.
There's so much, but you have to respect and honor, because you're not dead. You are glowing and more alive than ever before. And you learn tools and techniques to nurture and heal and help your body thrive along the path that you went on. Are there any tips or tools that you want to share? Because right now, I think more people are focused on their health than ever before. We have a huge opportunity right now.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people, that help keep you feeling alive and healthy and out of that fear mode?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is thinking about environment. And that was a gift that my doctor in Arizona gave me, was education about environment. And when you think of our bodies as our environment, and you think about what we're growing and what we're choosing to put in, and how we're essentially planting seeds and tending the soil of our bodies every single day with what we eat, with what we consume mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whether it be food or thoughts or people or whatever it is, what environment are you growing? And so, things as big as cancer, we get so scared. And the crazy thing is, we think cancer, we think death. I mean, there is no other option. And he really reprogrammed my mind to say, oh, no, this disease, this illness is just a tap on the shoulder from God, that something in your environment needs to be tended to. And that was powerful.
I just, guys, pause with that. That is huge. That is life game changing, huge. It's just what you've grown to this point, and it can all be redone. This God whisper. Oh my goodness. I imagine how that changes everything, and puts the power back in your hands.
It does. And the coolest thing was, best of the best oncologist in the Midwest, the conversation with him was all about my statistics of death and killing cancer, death, killing, disease, sick, sterile, Kleenex, tears, you're going to die, conference table. It was I felt like I was at my own funeral. And I looked around that room and I saw the defeat in everyone's eyes. And I just thought, oh, hell no, this is not my life. I was 20 years old, and then fast forward to my conversation over the phone with this delightful human that is talking to me like, oh, this is no big deal. This is a tap on the shoulder from God. This is a gift. This is your body protecting itself.
Option A, Mayo, best of the best, is you're going to die. And option B, this guy that's like, no, this is, you got this. It's just a tap on the shoulder. Woo. Yeah. Give me that one.
Yeah. Right? I was like, I'm packing my bags. I'm ready to go. I made spreadsheets to explain things to my family. I broke down the cost. It was all out of pocket. Nothing was covered by insurance. It required me to move across the United States away from everything I've ever known by myself, to live in a hotel room and heal and do coffee enemas and weird hippie shit.
Which I'm not in there, right?
But it was everything, because in that conversation, he made me realize my internal environment needed attention. I needed to pay attention to what I was growing, what I was fueling my mind with, what I was fueling my body with. emotional pain that I've trapped in my female areas since I was a little girl that I had no idea I was even holding on to. And so it was this level of, like you said, responsibility that gave me my power back. And it really made me realize, hey, I don't have to just sit back and let poison run through my veins to heal. I can actively be a part of this. I can actively do things to heal my body from the inside out instead of the outside in. And not only can I heal cancer, I can heal everything. My allergies, my asthma, my reproductive health, everything, everything under the sun got better. And so the best analogy that he had given me was, he said, on this conversation that made me really tap into and hear and what I wanted to do with my internal environment. He said, okay, let's say that there's a serial killer running through your village. I'm like, okay. And he goes, what's your goal? I was like, I don't know, save the people. He's like, okay, so are you going to bomb the city, or are you going to get a sniper and are you going to take out the serial killer? And I'm like, huh. And he's like, our one and only cure for cancer right now is to bomb everything, including the good stuff. And he's like, we're going to help your good guys grow so that the bad guys just can't even exist anymore. And it was amazing. And he said, we don't kill cancer here. We heal the body. We're not killing anything. We're healing you in the process. And it made me realize my internal dialogue, the language I use to heal, just everything under the sun is so vastly important, and such a big piece. And so you take it, one bite at a time. Healing can be very overwhelming, but if you just start with the mental picture and you start with the language and you start looking at your symptoms as messengers, that are working for you and not against you, everything changes.
And how you see one thing becomes how you see all things. And if it's not like conquer, do, drive, kill, and it's this listen, course correct, pause, grace, it changes everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Now, talk to me about a coffee enema. Cause I think let's back up.
Oh boy.
Do you recommend them?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
It's not the first thing. There's much bigger things.
Yeah.
But at 20 years old, I went from my friends were doing beer bongs and I'm in a hotel room doing coffee enemas. And I'm like, what is going on right now? Yeah. So that was one of the many things that I did. And it was big for getting the cancer die-off out. It's not something I still do necessarily, but it can be very, very beneficial for helping the liver rid toxins.
Yes. And we're seeing a lot more Gerson therapy. I'll make sure that there's, because we could probably be on here for hours. Rattle off the questions of what do you recommend for people to read or to search more or take, or vitamins or this or that. So I'll ask her for some helpful hints and make sure those get attached. But take us into what the world, how would it shift right now? If say we had that one, right? And everybody wakes up and all of a sudden they start to listen to their body and they start to focus on the environment and they get in sniper mode instead of bomb the city. How does that change the way we're living? How would that change this world that we have created 2020, 2021?
I feel like the word that comes to my mind is freedom, and just freedom from so much emotional and physical pain and trauma. Freedom really starts to occur when you realize that there is something inside of you that's big and powerful and knowing. And it creates freedom. It creates freedom to tune in. It creates freedom to build connections. It creates freedom in your life, because when you understand why you have that physical pain, or you understand why you have that emotional pain, it creates a sense of freedom from being victim to it. It kind of helps you switch out of that mindset. And so really I see so much physical and emotional pain in so many people. that once they start to tap into that, especially in practice, I see this, throughout their care or whatever it may be. And they start to get their life back, and they start to step more into who they are. And I think the more people step into who they are and what they're called to do, I mean, everything benefits, and they create and they love, and their relationships are better, and every single aspect of their life gets better. And so it's really an exponential effect on everything. I feel like not just health, but relationships and family and creation and just everything. I'm like, I wish everyone knew how powerful they were.
The divine timing that we can see in your individual story, and what I believe is happening in our collective story, is this really severe pain, and we can try to dominate it, or we can listen to it and go, how do we get here? And this is an environment, and we can grow different seeds. So I think sometimes pain is a really good teacher. And so this time of discomfort and chaos and bickering, is forcing us to have more conversations and to listen to one another. So I'm equal parts a human that's frustrated in all of this, and more hopeful than I've ever been that people are going to be healthier and happier than ever before. And they're tuning in. And I think, I want to end with a word to the women. You referenced something about emotional trauma in your female organs. And, I'm a woman. So of course, I relate to them, but I'm seeing women trap anger and fear and sadness and all this chaos into them, because we're doers and I'm okay and I got this, and we don't take time out. We don't stop. We just keep going. What do you say to the women right now?
I think for me, as a woman, speaking to other women of all different kinds, your worth does not come from what you do. You're born worthy, and you don't have to earn it. And your abilities or inabilities do not make you more or less. And I think that's what I see virtually every woman striving for, whether it be in their career and their ability to be a mom and their ability to be a better mom, and their ability to be a wife or a better wife, or whatever it is. And I catch myself in the same routine, in the same cycle. But we don't have to earn our worth. We already are worthy. And that is where so much of my pain came from, was trying to be more, trying to be worthy, trying to, there's just different things that we go through as well sometimes as women that subconsciously wire this message that we are to accept levels of disrespect, that our worth is to be earned, or different things like that. And so that's kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah. And this listening and in that pause was maybe some of the best medicine we'll share. Because the pause, the quiet, that's where the listening happens. That's where I think a lot of the miracles really begin. And I think in order to set the world back on its head, and it's going to take women. And so we'll have to pause as we look at where we're at. And imagine, though, right? We close our eyes and you imagine a woman empowered in her worth, and what that would feel like if all women felt that, and what kind of children we would raise, and what kind of world we would then be living in. It changes everything. So, yeah.
It really does. And I think one of the powerful questions that I got asked in my journey was, what did your mother go through while you were in utero? And I thought, what? Like, what does that even mean? And then even back, they said, what did your grandmother go through while your mother was in utero? And it really just made me stop and reflect. And when I answered those questions, I was just like wailing, like sobbing. And I never realized I had even connected with either of those things, but we carry it. We carry it. So.
That's huge. And so you just signed yourself up for a part 3 as well, because I want to dive into that one. But
I do need to share the second part of the journey, which was the recurrence part, for sure.
Yeah. You said something before we were on here, and that you followed your faith in the first part, and then in the second part it changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have time? A quick moment.
We make time.
Okay.
Yes.
I feel like it's important in the conversation that we're having, and I will keep it brief. Was healed, came to chiropractic school, started, my journey toward becoming a doctor of chiropractic, and it was finals week, went in for a traditional well woman visit, and I'm sitting there in my gown all vulnerable and stuff, and they walk in with a box of Kleenex and tell me every worst fear I had come to life. That sweetheart, holistic things just don't work long term. There's been a recurrence. We're going to get you hooked up with the best oncologists at KU Med, all the things. So it felt like at that point I was on a conveyor belt and everything just went fast. I didn't completely throw my hands in the air, but I surrendered a lot more to the fear, and ended up agreeing to a full hysterectomy and exploratory staging surgery. So that meant wide open vertical incision, opened me up, took fluid around my heart, 37 lymph nodes, my greater omentum, every piece of womanhood that I had at 23. And it put me into surgical menopause instantly. And 7 days later, surgeon called, same thing. I don't know how this happened. There's no evidence of disease anywhere. So there was no evidence of disease. They took every single thing inside of me out. And there was nothing. So it furthered my inner knowing. I felt bitter at first. My husband and I weren't married yet, just all the different things. But I went to go get my bandage off a couple days later, and it was incredibly painful. Long story short, I ended up taking the bandage off myself. I said, get out of my room, leave me alone. You're not touching me. I will get this off myself. They said, okay, if you don't get it off, we're going to sedate you. I'm like, I got this. So at this point, I have a port, I have an IV, I have a pain push, all the things going on. In my hospital gown, my mom's with me, and I'm slowly pulling it off, just bawling the whole time, feeling completely vulnerable and empty. And when I got to the bottom of the bandage, I have sobbed like I've never sobbed in my life, because when I look down, my 2 scars make a perfect cross. And it was like everything in that moment was lifted. And I've never felt God's presence in my life so much as I literally have a reminder that it's finished on my body every single day. And a reminder of all of the things that have happened, how they're going to be used to serve women in so many different capacities, from teaching them their inner knowing and their healing journey, to knowing what it's like to walk through a fertility journey, to just everything in between. It was like I have a visible reminder, a horizontal one where I followed my faith, and a vertical one where I followed my fear, and just how all of that has been redeemed. And truly in that moment, it was lifted. Yeah. Yeah.
And you speak of it with such grace. And again, you think you know, and you have no idea because there's so much intimacy that you just shared, and those moments and the cross and things that I had never heard. And to see the way you move in the world and get to be your friend and get to see the love you pour into, the way you serve on social media and the way I assume you serve in that beautiful practice of yours. That love comes from a sacred place and a very sacred journey. And it will be one of the great honors of my life, I believe, to get to see where you go from here. And I'm grateful that I get to know you.
Grateful I get to know you too.
Yeah. And I'm, to anyone listening to this, I know this woman, when she says, reach out, she means it. And
Absolutely.
And I will have you back so that we can dive even deeper. And I'm grateful for technology and Zoom that sometimes drives me crazy, but I get to be with you, from hours away and create this. And the magic that we both know to be true is that we're just two girls trying to figure it out and sharing the space between what we both have experienced and been carved out. And this moment, this thing that just happened on Zoom will serve lives that we will never know.
Exactly.
And it's an honor to get to be that with you. So
thank you so much.
Yeah. Now I'm going to get in the car and drive to Kansas City and give you a big hug, because that's the hardest part.
Please do.
I can't reach her. So for those people that do want to reach you, you want to tell them how they can find you?
Yes. So I am on social media. I feel like that's a good place to start. My business page is at Journey Chiro KC, and then my personal page that has a link to the entire blog of my healing journey is at Dr. Jess Bohlke, Bohlke. And that is usually the best place to reach me.
Beautiful. Well, guys, I think you now know who this woman is, and that you will see a lot more of her in the future all over the place. I have a feeling. And our love and thoughts to everybody. We love you. We appreciate you. And my friend, I will see you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.